Good afternoon. Exhibitions are a critical museum activity. Establishing exhibitions as open data can provide sites on the web to accumulate key documentation and link to the digitized resources necessary to understand and explore those exhibitions. Since 2014, the Museum of Modern Art Archives has worked to extract information from its archival documents to build out MoMA's exhibition history and turn it into clean, well-structured data linked to participating artists. Work which became the basis for MoMA's 2016 website expansion. Today I will quickly review our work to date and describe further work we've done compiling and refining data on traveling exhibitions, and the implications that work has for integrating data of multiple institutions around the world. Through this work and related endeavors, we can imagine achieving an interlinked system covering large swaths of the history of the art exhibition, providing a new way to contextualize, support, and guide art historical research. The Museum of Modern Art opened in November 1929 with its first exhibition, Cézanne, Gauguin, Seurat, Van Gogh. By the end of 2020, 91 years later, it has been the scene of 3,932 exhibitions. Most displayed art, though not always the kind of art you would expect in a modern museum. And some exhibited other things. Cars, for instance. Or even plants. One of our curators was also an avid gardener. At MoMA and other museums, all this activity has produced large quantities of historical documentation. At MoMA, the main set of curatorial and registrar records for exhibitions is currently over 325 meters in shelf space and growing. Documentation also includes nearly 50,000 photographs of exhibition installations and vital exhibition documentation found in other collections. These records for exhibitions are the most heavily requested and accessed by researchers, and we have worked to move information about our exhibition history online over the past 15 years to make it easier for researchers to learn our history. 20 years ago, our exhibition history was only available internally as an HTML table, and then a little later as a spreadsheet. More recently, in 2007, we made it available externally as a simple web page. This simple list continues to be extremely useful for us. Among the most basic and heavily used documentation on exhibitions are press releases, installation images, checklists, and exhibition catalogs. In 2008, the library scanned all of MoMA's historic press releases and put them online. Installation images were scanned in the 2010s, but available only from an internal database, so a researcher would need to make an appointment in the archives to see any of these images. Checklists and exhibition catalogs existed only on paper. The physical exhibition records themselves remain unindexed and largely off limits to the public. Overall, these records were difficult to access, and a researcher might have great difficulty answering even basic questions about MoMA exhibitions. Was a particular artist ever exhibited at MoMA? How many times? What artists had works in a particular exhibition? Who organized it? It was hard to count exhibitions, let alone query or filter them to provide answers to any questions. These difficulties motivated our new efforts. In working to inventory and open to researchers all our exhibition records, it became convenient to create new scans of a primary resource, exhibition checklists. The scans made it easy to view and manually input into a database names of artists who appeared in each exhibition. We did not include information on artworks, as that would have taken far too long to create records for works MoMA doesn't own, and for which little or no information is available. And here you can see two examples of checklists which provide very little artwork information. There are many shows like this. Structuring our data in a basic relational database of names and exhibitions allowed us to produce metadata that we could map to the related digitized checklists and other resources. This data was moved into MoMA's web content management system, which enabled MoMA to build individual web pages for each exhibition linked to digitized resources, as well as individual pages for each included artist. These pages premiered in 2016. They link together tens of thousands of digital resources in an easily browsable interface. We matched artist names to a number of external identifiers, including Wikidata and Ulan. Those were used on our artist pages to increase SEO rankings and to provide additional information to the user. Importantly, this is the first time that artists who did not have works owned by MoMA, but were only exhibited by us, were finally represented on our website. The exhibition data became the backbone of the system, which connected disparate archival documents together while revealing a more comprehensive, inclusive view of decades of museum activity. So that is how MoMA.org looks today. It's easy to say that this represents all the exhibitions MoMA has ever done, but it actually doesn't. If we think about it, we might realize that, with few exceptions, the exhibitions featured on any museum website are only ones that appeared at that museum. But MoMA, like most other museums, both sends exhibitions to other institutions and shows exhibitions which were organized or initiated by other institutions. Furthermore, there are numerous exhibitions which MoMA organized which never appeared at MoMA and only appeared elsewhere. These traveling exhibitions constitute a hidden side of museum activity, and I think that for most of us, when we step into a museum and see an exhibition, we can't tell whether the exhibition has come from or is going anywhere else, unless we look very closely. MoMA first sent exhibitions to other institutions within the United States in 1932, administered by a unique department, the Department of Circulating Exhibitions. As many of these exhibitions consisted of reproductions of artworks or photo panels, they were cheap to produce, and the number of such exhibitions ballooned in the 1940s. Many of these panel shows were shown only at schools, public libraries, or other sites outside museums, but many also appeared at MoMA itself. MoMA sent its first exhibition to another country in 1936. Foreign exhibition tours were less numerous than domestic shows, but their numbers increased after World War II, especially after responsibility for international tours was taken up by a group called the International Program. Some traveling exhibitions of this era are especially heavily studied to this day. They were seen as exemplars of the role art could play in the Cold War struggle for cultural and political dominance, let alone as avenues through which artists around the world saw the latest developments in American art for the first time. Records of traveling exhibitions are present in the MoMA archives, but the data is not on our website and has never been brought together in a consistent, complete manner. As before, compiling this data would allow aggregate analysis and the easy answering of basic queries such as how many exhibitions has MoMA sent to a particular country or city or venue, which artists may have had works seen by specific audiences in specific periods. Other investigations important to fully understanding the history of MoMA would be enabled about how information about modern art was promulgated during the 20th century. To compile this data, we looked at itineraries, simple lists of all the stops exhibitions made. For some time periods, we have spreadsheets of exhibitions, but the information is very poorly structured. We again input this information manually into a relational database. We standardized and normalized place names and dates and other terms, and then reconciled those place names to geoname IDs and Getty's Thesaurus of Geographic Names. This work is ongoing, but we can show off some results. MoMA has circulated 1,037 distinct exhibitions between 1929 and 2018. These exhibitions have taken place in more than 1,100 different cities and in 92 different countries, and all 50 United States. Venue names still need to be cleaned up and deduplicated, so we don't actually have a solid count of individual venues, but it is certainly above 3,000. Here's a chart by year. You can see both the explosion of photo panel exhibitions in the 1940s and the increase in international tours beginning after World War II, as I mentioned. Since we reconciled places to geographic authorities, we were able to pull in coordinates and map the routes of these exhibitions. We did this work in the free version of Tableau. And here's a view of all of MoMA's international exhibition tours, or maybe not all. I think there's a limit to what we can squeeze into Tableau, so I'm not sure how many lines of data this actually represents. And here are tours of some individual exhibitions over the decades. This is an important exhibition of abstract expressionism, which we'll come back to. Here's an exhibition that toured solely in India and was shown in a geodesic dome that traveled along with the exhibition. Here's an important design show that visited 3 different continents and produced 4 different catalogs for 5 different stops on a tour. The most venues a single exhibition has been shown at is 248. Look at Your Neighborhood, an exhibition about urban planning, was one of those domestic exhibitions that consisted solely of photo panels. It was produced in multiple copies, and individual copies went on multiple tours, as you can see here, and it's difficult to untangle all that information without very clearly structured data. Here are just the 2 tours that had the most stops, 23 stops each, and each tour is a dense little knot of data. But there's complexities even in apparently simpler exhibitions. Here's that abstract expressionist show that went to 8 places in Europe. We've seen that a single exhibition can produce multiple catalogs, but also every stop on the tour may have a different title, even if in the same language. And most importantly, the exact set of artworks in the exhibition can change, with works being removed from the tour or added for one or more particular stops, and even whole sections of the exhibition might be pared away. Yet, despite these differences, we still consider these, in some basic way, the same exhibition. These complexities of exhibitions are difficult to address in typical data systems, which is why CIDOC CRM, in particular link.art, can offer such benefit to us. While the model is still being refined, it has the clear ability to define every single instance an exhibition was shown, to record assertions about the instances collectively, and to note differences among them individually. Here we can see a schematic of a simple exhibition that occurred in one place for a single duration featuring a set of artworks. The model becomes more complicated were we to start connecting planning activities, archival documents, and information on all the artists and specific artworks in the exhibition. But this is the simple framework for the exhibition itself. For traveling exhibitions, this pattern is repeated for each stop on the itinerary, but connected by entities representing the tour. The tour as a whole can have its own properties and produce its own archival records and documentation. Again, when fully fleshed out, the model can look a great deal more complicated. Because this data involves multiple museums and organizations, and more museums are putting their complete exhibition histories online, Linked Open Data provides the tools for us to build systems that tie them together. The Art Institute of Chicago has 140 years of exhibitions now online. If these 2 instances of the same Giacometti traveling exhibition were linked, it would become much easier, for instance, to compare how the installations with specific artwork differed. Even for more recent exhibitions, here from 2017, tying these pages together not only enhances our knowledge of the exhibition, but invites us to explore those other institutions and their histories. At MoMA, we've also experimented aggregating exhibition information from other institutions currently available on the web, bringing it together in a single database. Some of this is available online as web pages, but some only as PDFs or HTML tables, so it hasn't been easy at every place to gather that data. It allows us to reconstruct overall exhibition activity for a single moment in time. As many of these institutions are in New York, we can use this data to imagine what a day out at the museums might have been like 50 or even 100 years ago. And it's not only museums who are gathering and publishing exhibition histories. The Bay Salon and Chronicle 250 detail the centuries of the Paris salons and the summer exhibitions at London's Royal Academy. The Database of Modern Exhibitions, DOME, is focused on modernist gallery exhibitions between the years 1905 and 1915, but despite the short time frame, it's a very rich body of data. Just 2 weeks ago, Van Gogh Worldwide launched, seeking to unite Van Gogh artworks around the world into one website, and you may hear more about this project at other times this week. One of their main contributors, the Van Gogh Museum, has extensive exhibition histories for all its paintings. Here's their page showing all the works in their collection that were included in a landmark exhibition at MoMA in 1936. We can hope eventually that we will be able to link together their record for MoMA's Van Gogh exhibition with our own page. But what MoMA and the Van Gogh Worldwide site don't explicate is that this exhibition traveled, and we can find other places on the web that detail the history of this same exhibition. Here is the dedicated page for the same exhibition at the Cleveland Museum of Art, which also has a link to its installation photographs. I could go on. If we aggregated the exhibition information currently available on the web, we would have a chronological list of shows stretching over 5 centuries. The data from each institution can seem unique and unrelated to the histories of other institutions, but traveling exhibition data shows that all of our institutions are interlinked. Our histories are commingled. The data illuminates these networks and makes it possible to connect all of our historical records. Extracting this data from archival documents is feasible, and linked open data provides us the tools to exploit it. Thank you, and I'm happy now to answer any questions.